When the spawn meets world, spawn meets world. When the spawn meets world.
What up, bros?
What up, bros?
And welcome to Bro Meets World.
What is Bro Meets World?
Your Boy Meets World fan cast. So welcome to episode 57.
What up, fam?
I'm Ceej.
And I'm your boy, Tony Coitus.
Do you do like every other thing now?
You know
sometimes
what?
you're TC, sometimes you're Tony Coitus.
I never take the same road twice.
Actually, you do, just like not. Just in a row.
Yeah, exactly.
How you been? What's going on?
Well, I have to say, I was very disappointed to not see Billy Crystal in this episode.
Why?
Because I read it City Slickers.
Ha! So here's the thing. I wanted to make sure, but like, yeah, I wrote City Slickers when I was originally writing the notes. I was like, City Slickers.
Yeah.
Wait, no, Slackers.
Slackers.
But I also wanted to make sure I wasn't missing like a more obvious joke.
Sure.
Yeah, this episode is...
Dude, it's about damn time that we got some Feeny backstory.
Well, we get some Feeny backstory. We get some of the things we love about Boy Meets World.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to get into this episode.
We also learn a lot about Shawn's perception of Feeny.
Yes,
Which
that
I
dynamic
was very revealing.
Oh my god, I'm so excited to
Yeah,
get into
yeah.
that. And like there, as always, there are like a few really stupid things, but you won't know that until we get into it. Also, this has one of the more memorable, at least for me, B storylines.
Oh
So-
my goodness, no, dude. This stupid B storyline, whatever.
Let's
man.
get into it. So, tell me about it.
Tell me about it. Tell me all about the snow.
Oh, good for you.
There you go.
I like it. This is season 3, episode 11, City Slackers.
You know?
Cory and Shawn sneak off to Mr. Feeny's mountain cabin for a weekend of fun. But as to be expected, they're caught in the act. In a B storyline, Eric and Frankie engage in a marathon game of pool. Let's just start with the marathon game of pool because I feel like that's really short, and then we can go into everything else.
I don't know what to say. It felt like they took characters that they were obligated by contract to include on screen at some point, threw them into a storyline, and was just like, yeah, sure, this is fun.
Yeah, well, so like a few things. One, on a roll call, we have Julie Benz.
Yes,
Yeah.
from Dexter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she's Bianca.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, like it's. I also feel like she's been in a couple of things in the 90s at this point in
Yeah.
time. But the moment she showed up, I was like, oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that we're getting better casting right now.
Oh, we start diving into the dream pool of actors to choose from in the 90s because we're going to start recognizing a ton of people.
Yeah,
in
that's
the
what I'm saying.
episodes,
Like
yeah.
what with her and like I just think we start to really whoever
Christina Carpenter was in the last episode.
yeah, who's ever casting, either they had great talent with casting or like the ABC pool was just like
Sure, yeah.
just keep using these people. There'll be something. I mean, but it's all really, really good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then also we get Troy Evans who plays Ranger Mark, which is a kind of fun little goofball character.
Sure.
But on the pool storyline,
Julie Benz apparently is horny for
jocks only.
And Will Friedle gets the brilliant idea that he's going to say that he is a pool shark. He's like number one pool master.
Let's not just start there. Let's
Yeah.
start where the story starts, which is at school, where Eric goes up to Jonathan.
Yes.
And apparently he's like Eric says something to him. He's like, "You're in my class." Like, and
That's the first time we learned that they have a class together.
absolutely,
Yeah.
or that we reference Jonathan teaching another class.
Yep.
And
English lit, I believe.
Yeah, English lit. And this will be important in the next few episodes, which
Yep.
is why I think it's important to start there. But also, you get Eric being like, "Hey, do you know her? Yeah, she's also in my class. How do you know her? As her teacher, because she's in my class." And he's like, can you introduce me to her? And it's like, no, dude. And, Eric's, of course, one-track mind. She only dates Jock. And then you even get this scene where Turner's like, does this involve me? Like, can I go?
Again, this was like, there's times when a show will put together a combination of characters that don't usually interact, and it works really well. Like, Stranger Things does a really good job at that.
Yeah.
But this episode was proof to me that Eric and Jonathan, it ain't working. Eric and Eli, weird. Frankie and Eric, weird.
I don't know. I will give you weird, but Eli being at the pool match, A, made sense, and B, it was kind of like this fun outside perspective.
I did like him the best out of everyone who was in that scene.
That's what I'm saying. Like, every single time, he would have his commentary, which, I mean, it's still a little tropey black guy, but it's very, very much just hey, what's going on here? And it's just like, oh, this is what's going on. He's just basically being the audience at this point in time. And he's having fun with it. And I think I remember this storyline.
The joke is that they play this game for hours and no one sinks in a single shot.
Absolutely. Eric starts off the line to her saying that he's a pool. He played in the Olympics. Pool
Olympics in Mexico.
And then
1968 or some shit before he was like of age.
Yeah. And and then of course he goes to Chubby's and he goes to play it, and then Frankie's like, Joey is like, if you're trying to challenge my boy Frankie here. So we get both of them in a scene, which we haven't had in a while.
Can I just say R.I.P. Joey?
Oh,
this is our last episode with him.
No! Why'd you make me sad?
I just wanted to point that out. That this is unfortunate. It became evident to me that they were running out of shit to do with these boys.
I mean, they are. But
so I think they had to shake things up. And when it came down to it, Joey was just a more evolved character than Joey was.
You mean Frankie?
Yes, Frankie was a more evolved character than Joey was.
He did have more depth. I'll give him that.
We met his dad already. It was a thing. But yeah, that just made me sad to think that this was the story that...
I think that this is a good story to go out on. I mean, again, not necessarily that they gave him a lot to do, but I think this being the last time we see him with Frankie, having fun, being true to his character, is better than the last time we saw him, which was... when he was doing the janitor bud.
What's becoming apparent to me is that this show, as it evolves, does do a pretty decent job of trimming the fat. So at the beginning of season 1, we had this family storyline, and they were like, oh, there's some things about this that are working, there's some that's not. Let's change it up for season 2. Season 2, we got introduced to all these new characters. Harley, Harley isn't working that well, but Jonathan's working, let's keep him around. And I think as the show progresses, they're trimming a lot of these side characters down to just be about the kids and the role that everyone else plays in the life of the kids. Yeah. And I think the show works better that way. But it's just interesting to see it in its process of evolving.
Yeah.
But yeah. Joey.
Well, I mean, again, I'm really happy that we at least got it.
Yeah.
And also the idea of this pool game. Have you ever played? Are you good at pool?
No, not at all.
Do you play?
I can play, but I learned at the YMCA when I was 8.
Oh.
And that's kind of.
I actually kind of want to take. It was only funny to me because I one of my hobbies I was looking up is taking billiard lessons. I just kind of want to try it. I don't know. It seems like an activity that's abnormal.
I have never heard of someone taking billiard lessons. I've never heard of someone Googling where can I get a teacher for this? It's not impossible because there's tennis coaches, there's all these things.
Well, not only that, but in reality, as this shows, they you can't just play it and be good. It takes there is a craft to it.
What is up with Frankie having a custom pool stick yet not being able to hit anything with
it? That's what I thought was funny. But also what's really interesting about this is later on, of course, after the game is over, first of all, Julie stayed a while. Way longer than she should have.
Yeah.
But
for hours. She
Yeah.
stayed and watched like people lose, which is the thing that gets her the driest, as we've learned.
And after everyone has left, Eric, of course, takes a shot, and like all the balls go into, and it's just like this great, perfect shot. And he's like, same thing that happened in Mexico.
Yeah.
And it's weird because it's like, all right, so are we expected to believe that Eric did in fact play pool in Mexico at some point in time, or like what?
This is a sloppy who cares sandwich, bro. Like
I don't know. I had fun
care
with it,
about
and
any of it.
I think that this is one of those like threads where it could totally like, if this show was made now, it'd be one of those things that like just came back where like the cast goes to Mexico and they're like, oh, pool guy.
Yeah.
And that's just my whole thing.
You know what? I think the A storyline had just so much meat on the bone that it overshadowed the B storyline.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I remembered this B storyline and I wanted to talk about it. Okay, so let's talk into the biggin.
Feeny presents the Matthews with keys to the cabin.
All right, so a few things with this one. One, we start off in a way where I was like, okay, what are we doing? Because we're using TV logic, but a lot of it didn't make sense. Because you start off with Shawn being like, you know what I like about your house, studying at your house? No Feeny.
Feeny lives next door. He's always lived next door.
Exactly. He's always like, it was like, you've been here before. Yep. What did you think would happen? And then when Feeny comes over to bring the key for Amy, they're all talking about it. We can't go, yada, yada, yada. Shawn takes the key.
Yep.
Immediately asks to step outside. And like in that time, I'm like, so no one's asked for the key? That was literally just presented.
Shawn did have a joke that I really liked, which he's like, Cory, we got to use our code.
Yeah.
He's like, we don't have a code. Guys like us should really have a code. We'll discuss it at the next meeting. Oh, when's the next meeting? We don't have meetings. It's a fun bit.
This club sucks. Yeah. It was a very fun bit. I'll give you that. But I guess for me, I was just like, why are we doing this? Like, you could have just had... I liked that bit.
Yeah.
But like everything else, it's like, oh, we're going to step right outside of the door after I just made it very obvious that we are going outside to talk about something. And then I'm going to tell you my plan while we're outside of the door and everyone can watch us and probably hear us.
To the point you were making earlier about Shawn complaining about studying and Feeny showing up, we just really get some vibes from Shawn that we haven't really gotten in the past, where it becomes very clear that he really does not have the same relationship with Feeny that Cory does. Whereas Cory has this very much like, almost like a grandfather relationship with Feeny, Shawn thinks Feeny legit does not like him.
Well, I mean, this season has been about exploring the depths of Shawn.
Yeah.
And, I mean, like earlier in the season, we got that episode where I think a lot of things that we just take for granted now, knowing these characters, we're reminded that they haven't always been this solid. And,
Yeah.
Earlier we had Shawn and Topanga being like, we're not friends. And
Yeah.
you're like, oh yeah, they're not friends at this point in time. They're just like in the same circle, which is weird. And because we know of Feeny's relationship with all of with the 4 other students, it's just kind of like assumed that Feeny cares about, like they understand how much Feeny cares. But this episode shows that no, Shawn thinks that Feeny doesn't like him.
And the flip side of that, we learn that Feeny cares about Shawn quite a bit, more so than his other students, which later becomes obvious. But I think this was the first time as a viewer that we were exposed to directly how Feeny feels about Shawn specifically, separate from Cory.
Absolutely. Because, well, there's that whole scene where Shawn goes, oh, you memorized my file.
Yeah.
And then Feeny's like, you like this
Crows.
band called the Counting Crows. And he's like, that's not in my file. And he's like, no, it's not. And it's like, no, I actually took an interest in you.
Yeah.
And I do care about you.
Well, Shawn's like, do you know that much about all your students? And Feeny says no.
Yeah.
Just a real coy type of way of being.
But I'm just saying, like, even if Feeny hadn't said, like, directly no, it's still something to where, like, if Feeny did that for everyone, it would still be something where it's like, oh, this guy cares and goes above and beyond to get to know students. And the fact that he doesn't do it for everyone and he just does it for Shawn speaks even higher of at least what he thinks about Shawn. So
Yeah. I really want to get into the watch storyline, but did you want to talk about anything else about the cabin and them going to
there's
the
a
cabin?
whole bunch I have on the
Yeah,
cabin.
okay.
There are a few things. Like, one, there's the idea that, of course, Shawn's talking about like going to the cabin, and he says we'll be able to see snow bunnies, and the crowd goes wild. And they're female voices that go wild, and I'm like, what are we wooing at?
Okay, so this brings up another point that I have made, because this is one of those circumstances where, very much like the surprise party that Cory went to with Shawn when they were the only two there,
Yeah.
Shawn is actively encouraging Cory to, like, hey, let's go hook up with these snow bunnies. Like, what does Cory think is going to happen exactly that's like, all right, yeah, sure, I'm down.
Oh, yeah, he goes, I'm down.
Yeah.
So
It just feels like one of those things where, like, oh, if you jump, I jump, but jumping into a bed with snow bunnies, maybe not so great when you have to pay and go around. Like, it's just one of those things.
But I, again, and later in the season, we'll explore where Cory's mind is probably at this point in time.
Yeah.
So there's that, and then also, with Ranger Mark, we get like that weird incest joke, because like they're like, which one of you is Feeny's grandson? And it's like, he is, no, I am, and we both are.
Yeah.
And then he's like, don't worry, I'm from Mountain Folk myself. And I'm like, again, why is this here? Like, did we have to do that?
It's the 90s. I don't know what to say.
I will also say that there's a scene where Shawn confused the Rockies for the Poconos.
Yes.
And I'm not going to lie, as someone who grew up in Florida and therefore no mountain ranges, I also, for the longest time, did not know that the Rockies and the Poconos, and like, just basically for me, it was TV Mountain Place.
Yes.
It was like, I didn't really know like where
100%.
Aspen was,
Yeah.
or like any of these things. So I'm like, I don't know, mountain area,
Yeah.
like ski lodge area. And having lived in New York, I now know how close, because I was even like, how close, usually they do these things, you're like, how close is the Poconos to Philly? But
Sure.
like, it's a manageable bus ride. Yeah, you can actually do that. So
that's where my parents honeymooned. Funny.
Aw, that's sweet.
Shawn has a joke when they get to the cabin where the ranger's like, oh, this is where the snow lodge is. It's 2 miles. Of course, like 2 miles. And Shawn says, lighten up, Cory. It's only 1 mile each.
Yeah.
I laughed at that dumb shit. I thought that was funny.
Absolutely.
Well, and there's also a point where they say, that's why you don't... The ranger says something. And then either Cory or Shawn, I can't remember, says, that's why you don't see a lot of rangers on The Tonight Show. And I thought that was really elitist.
Well, I mean, what he says is he's telling the story of, like, of course, the urban legend guy. And he's like, it was a murder-suicide, which he was like, I was thinking to myself, why would you tell this to 2 teenagers who are by themselves? But he says something about that, and he's like, how could he come back to haunt everyone if it's like a murder-suicide? And he's like, oh, I never thought about that. And he's like, yeah, all right, this is why you don't see.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so Feeny shows up, and he catches the boys. And I just wanted to ask you this. Both Feeny and Shawn say the phrase, bald-face lie.
Yeah.
I thought the expression was bold-face lie.
I have no idea. Let's look that up.
If so, I'm the asshole because I've been saying it wrong for 31 years.
I mean, that would make sense. So it's actually barefaced lie. B-A-R-E faced lie. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Neither is the answer?
Bare means, bare meant brazen or bold. So essentially, when you say you were having a barefaced lie, you were saying bold-faced lie.
So they're interchangeable, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's a very disappointing answer.
But yeah, so that is
so he catches them, and there's a few times where I thought Shawn was being obnoxious.
Well, of course he is.
Yeah.
Shawn is a teenager,
Yeah.
and I think it makes sense. And I think even like what we see with Feeny is, understandably, he's like, of course you two took the key. Of course you two are here, and I'm stuck with you. I came to close this place that we find out later has a lot of sentimental value to him.
Yeah.
Only to have you two be here, disturb it, and then you're being rude. And Shawn has the audacity to play dumb or dumber.
Sure.
He is like, oh, well then, where are you going to sleep? And Feeny's like, boy, don't try me.
Yeah. There was one part where, Cory is like, Shawn says something about Feeny being uptight, and Cory refers to Feeny, and he's like, "Oh, well, you know how the British are."
Yeah, I thought that was funny too.
So, I know we've been hearing contrary things. I don't know if Cory would know the answer to this, but Cory is insisting that Feeny is British, and there was a debate about this that we had in the previous seasons about whether or not he was.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah, I'm just because I was very curious if he's British or not, and so far Cory is team Feeny's British.
Well, I mean,
if we ever attend the Boy Meets World convention, which
we will
I
ask.
hope we do, that's the question I'm going to ask. Is Feeny British? Yes or no?
Yeah, what's his ancestry?
Yes.
Like, so are we saying that his ancestry is British?
I'm not
Or are we saying
that.
that
I'm
he
saying,
is from
was he
Britain?
born in Britain or was he born in Boston? Because those are the two answers that this show can't make up.
The one thing that is, I'll say, interesting to me is that Feeny his middle name's Hamilton.
Yeah.
A lot of the Feeny character is more Americana. And so I don't see him being British.
Well,
but
Cory disagrees.
Well, but I think that's kind of like their whole stupid thing. You know? Like,
it's hard to say. It's really hard to know, I guess. And we have to ask him.
I mean, to be fair, we don't know if it's the backyard or the next yard. So, like, lots of things can be.
It's clearly the backyard.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, but let's talk about this whole Shawn and Feeny dynamic.
I just want to talk real fast about something that Feeny says about Shawn when he's kind of reciting his file.
Mm-hmm.
He mentions that Shawn was in and out of 5 schools before the age of 12.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, we meet Shawn when, let's give the show the benefit of the doubt, when he is 12 years old in the first season. So are we to believe that he was in different schools for almost every grade of his elementary school education? If so, then this absolutely contradicts the flashbacks we see in the future of Shawn and Cory on field trips in the first grade together.
Well, I was in different schools for a lot of my elementary education, and then also, which probably showed with that sentence, and then also, I've definitely gone to like more than one school in a school year. So, I mean, they could have just honestly just moved around in order to make this work. But I think what the story is trying to set up is that Shawn
gets around.
Well, Shawn has always had this instability. Yeah. And that really does develop his character. And it fits for Verna and Chet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For sure, yeah.
So, yeah.
I just thought that was a lot. So, really, there's a lot of backstory to Shawn's life.
Yeah.
Right before we meet him initially.
Absolutely.
Show, so.
And I think, that kind of colors... It really does color Shawn. I think that this season, as I said before, it's really about diving into Shawn and his backstory. I mean, we finally get some of Feeny with this episode, but a lot of it is us learning more about Shawn as a character. And I would say that with the Jonathan storylines, with Shawn, going on some self-exploration a little bit later, I think the show realized that the most interesting part of Cory is his friendship with Shawn.
Totally. I just really liked how this episode just gave us information about characters we've always known. I kind of am upset that, like, we get more what seems to be, like, time travel episodes in this show than we do, like, these, like flashbacks into these characters, maybe things we don't know about them yet. And I feel like that was just so interesting to learn about Feeny and his wife, who he was when she was still alive. He as he's described in the journal, he's like more like Shawn, and Shawn recognizes that, but it only makes you as an audience wonder, like, wow, how much of him changed because of the death of his wife, and all these things that just give him so much color as a character that I just really wish we saw more of with Amy and Alan and you know, Frankie and these side characters that are there. Let's do more with them.
Well, yeah, as we were saying, Boy Meets World, the writers, they give their characters such interesting backstories. Where we're like, yeah, tell me more about that. I want to go there. And instead, we will have, I don't know, a 70s disco party. And you're like, why do we do this when we have Feeny being this amazing... Like, it almost reminded me of their dynamic would be something, I imagine, that Up would have. Where it's like you have like this uptight curmudgeon of a young man who meets this woman who's just like passionate and the life of the party. And...
Thinking about the opening scene of Up, but with Feeny and his current wife, is making me tear up.
But I'm just saying, it's an interesting thought experiment. And
have we gotten to the episode where we reveal Turner's backstory yet?
No, not yet.
Okay.
But which I like, but yeah, like even the whole thing with the journal.
Yeah.
And revealing, you know, of course, that Feeny was once a young married man.
Feeny be fucking is what we learned.
Exactly. And
this show never like misses an opportunity to let us know that Feeny be fucking.
Yeah, it really doesn't. That's a really good point. They just like, just in case you were wondering, Feeny gets it in.
Yeah.
And so there's that, and then also the significance of the watch. And there's a moment where, of course, the watch falls into the sink.
Yes. And
you kind of know what's going to happen next. And Cory like makes it go down the drain or whatever. And Feeny just like, he's angry momentarily, but he also has this controlled...
Very quickly, he was able to rein it in.
Just resigned to understanding that it's gone, and like he'll just have to let that be. And that's interesting when you consider the fact that he came up here to sell the cabin. That was his getaway with his wife.
Bro, that's what's so great about this fucking episode, is that the watch is symbolic to the cabin. The fact that like his relationship with his wife is this thing he can't let go of, and then when the watch goes away, he's forced to let go of it, and that how does that change?
But he does that in that second.
Yes.
He's just like in that moment. He's just like, you know what? I came to do this. I guess that's just one more piece that I'll have to do. And for me, it's just like, I don't know. I would just be like distraught. But Feeny, he just kind of resigns to it.
And it also just showed how good of an actor William Daniels is.
Yeah.
I do want to just say how much I appreciate in retrospect, like these 90s sitcoms having these like really like heavyweight actors, because when I think of William Daniels, when I think of like James Avery, when I think of like these like people that were on shows with a bunch of people who were relatively new to the scene, and they were able to be almost these acting teachers to these young casts and help them grow and become better through their example. I just think that, you know, we were really lucky to get someone so gifted to be casted in a sitcom.
Yeah, I told you like how Adam Scott spoke about working with William Daniels and how he like was able to learn from him in the little time that he was there. And I can't imagine like what would Boy Meets World be without Feeny? I mean, like there's such a huge part of that show was based on the heart and moments and episodes like this.
Sure.
Where again, Shawn's like, "Why do you hate me?" And Feeny responds in such a Feeny way, and it's so in character for his response, but it's this slow unraveling of the depth of that character, and for him being like, I didn't know you think that way, and
I don't hate you.
It
frustrates me to see a boy with so much potential.
Exactly. What else? He says something. He says, like, I think Shawn says you're always on my case.
Yeah.
And you know, and like, just even when he's like, "Oh, you hate me," he doesn't say, "I don't hate you." He's just, "Why do you think that?" You know, and it's just like there's a very Feeny teachable moment, and I just think that William Daniels, as you said, he does so good with it, and the Feeny character is such a pillar of moments like this where you feel like you're learning how you should behave as a person. You know what I mean? Just
Absolutely.
by watching him.
And the events of the show are written so well that it only makes sense for Shawn to read Feeny's diary that night.
Yeah.
Like, it's the only logical thing. Shawn realized that this man, who he had a completely false perception of, knows so much about him without him knowing anything back. Feeny even says, "What do you know about me?"
Oh, that. I mean, again, it's this whole teachers are people too.
Yes.
It's this whole, when you're a teenager, learning about people outside of yourself.
Yes.
And I just think that, yeah, it's a really great way of doing this.
Shawn reads the journal, realizes that Feeny be fucking, and he also realizes that Feeny's watch was given to him by his wife on their anniversary, with Feeny saying something to the effect of, I will always see her reflection in the glass face or something.
Oh my god. Poetic. Well, so
Yes.
one thing he says is, they say Feeny is a great writer.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, we would expect.
Of course.
But I just love that, again, we're getting like these little bits about Feeny. He was married. He, came up here all the time. He learns about his students. They're giving you all this information without actually hitting you over the head with it.
Sure.
Which is really great. And then also, I love how we get this grandfather figure of authority. And what I mean by that is, when the boys come back from the lake, and, we as the audience know that they went inside the lake to get the watch.
Yeah.
And Feeny's just like, you know what? I've had it. I don't talk on the way of here. Every time I try with you, he's just like, he's clearly done.
And you know what? The show does a really good job of getting him to that point, because the day before, Shawn was so obnoxious, and this is the same guy who was like putting a spoon on his nose for hours. So for Shawn to come in the house covered in piss and shit, Feeny's just like, oh man, another thing that this kid is doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying, it's one of those things where it's like, the audience, of course, we know why, and it makes sense that Feeny's not going to let them talk. And even for a moment, I was like, will he actually just let them, like, will they sit in the car and just be silent? But of course, Shawn's defiant nature is the one that's like, no, you need to know why we did this. And I think what's interesting in that is Feeny chooses to focus on the bigger revelation of that moment, which is not that they got his watch, but that Shawn read a book.
Yes.
He goes, I see you read a book, Miss Hunter. And it's like, wow. That, again, that, like, for that to be what
read a book, but that Shawn was so interested in learning more about Feeny that he actually read a book, which he knows Shawn hates to do.
Exactly.
So his interest in Feeny must be so much more than that of the person he thought hated him.
Absolutely. Well, then also, again, it's positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
It's not like oh, thank you for getting this watch, or thank you for doing this thing for me. Oh, look at what you were able to accomplish when you put your mind to it.
Yeah.
Which, again, it's like such a teachable moment. And one that I don't think anyone else would think to teach in that second. But he does, and he does so in a way that's not like, again, it's not hitting you over the head. It's not like better than thou, or I knew you could do it. It's just like, oh, I'm going to let you realize the positive thing you did, even in this act that was for me.
Feeny tells the boys to jump into the lake to cool off when it's minus 20 or something.
I did think that was weird.
Weird? That man can go to jail if these children die.
Yeah, I did think
Just
that was
wanted to
very
throw
weird.
that out
I was
there.
like, so you told them to jump into the lake, but we know it's like freezing, and like, what, like, is there not running water? I don't know. Like, I'm just looking.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the running water thing was, because I thought, like, obviously they didn't have electricity because they didn't know how to turn it on. Feeny would know that.
Yeah, exactly. And we did dishes, actually.
Yeah, maybe
Earlier.
he just didn't want them in the house.
Yeah, possibly. I don't know. Okay.
One thing I want to say is that Frankie, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
To this day, whenever I'm in a situation where I'm in trouble, I remember what Feeny tells the boys at the end of this episode, which is, don't speak, smile, nod a lot. Till this day, if ever I'm in trouble, I smile and I nod a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I think what was also interesting to me is when they come back to the house, Turner's there.
He doesn't say smile. I just want to.
Yeah, no, but Turner's there, and I was like, oh yeah, he's Sean's guardian.
Yep.
Like, it was like, I had forgotten, but it was just that little detail, because I expected Alan and Amy to be upset with Cory, but to have Turner there as well, you're like, oh yeah, you are his
Yeah,
guardian.
it would be
and-
great to see you guys do something together at some point.
Absolutely. But no, also, I like that, again, as much as this episode shows and about Feeny, it also showed, like, at the end, Feeny takes the spoon and he tries new things. He like puts it on his nose, and it's like, it's I don't know. It's praising Feeny and his openness, and it shows that he's so successful because he is open to change and to learning new things, and that's kind of his spirit.
Sure, absolutely. One quick thing before we end, just quickly, to cap off the pool storyline.
Yeah.
Frankie says he has to go because he sings alto in the church choir.
Yes.
I don't know how familiar you are with vocal parts, but alto is typically reserved for the lowest female voice or the absolute highest male voice.
Yeah.
So I want you to envision Frankie, and then I want you to imagine an Adam Lambert type voice. Because
that's what they were going for. That was the comedy of it.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
And
I got that. I just wanted to point that out because I thought it was funny.
Yeah, I wrote Frankie in choir as, like, literally my last note.
And him being in choir, him being in poetry, his dad being who he is, it's obvious why Frankie was the more interesting one and the one they chose to keep. So, can we just have a quick moment of silence for Joey's character real fast?
Joey the Rat.
Joey the Rat, R.I.P. Dead air. Okay, let's move on.
Yeah, so what was did you have, like, a bra moment or anything of this episode?
My bra moment was students reading about their teacher having sex.
Yeah, honestly, for me, when he was like, we're going to have to spend the night here, I was like, I could use with you, like, giving his parents a call, or, like, being like, hey, I'm going to call your parents and let them know that you're here. It's just like, for you to just be like, nope, we're going to have to spend the night. And
Maybe there was no telephone.
It's just, I mean, if that's the case, though, again, in 2019 thinking, I was like, you cannot have a grown-ass man with two teenage boys in a cabin where the parents don't know. It was terrible.
Yeah.
But that was the only moment I remember when he was like, all right, well, I guess we're spending the night here because we can't go back. I was like, not a good look.
Dude, that's how I feel when I find out that some teachers, like, text their students.
Yeah,
and
you
I'm
have a
just like,
huge problem.
I'm like, that's just heebie-jeebie. You're just, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I honestly, I'm not going to lie. We've talked about this before. Texting doesn't really bother me. But it's definitely this, we're going to be sleeping in close quarters. Your parents don't know where you are. Or at least we haven't seen any reference to, I called your parents and I let them know. It just makes it a little...
Sure.
This would be a SVU storyline in any other...
Well, I mean, Feeny does stalk Cory throughout his entire educational career, so...
We can't spend all this time praising Feeny and then be like, he's secretly a pedophile. Okay. And any Feeny taught me. What do you think the lesson of this is?
To get to know... I guess to get to know the people in your life a little bit better.
Yeah.
Or to invest time in getting to know someone before you judge them, perhaps. I don't know. I'm trying to get something from what he says to Shawn.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Feeny specifically was trying to take away. But I think maybe the lesson is more so for Shawn to, I don't know, that whole concept. Yeah.
No, I'm with you. I was like, it's either like that whole... It's not don't judge a book by its cover, even though the book is a very big part of it. But I think there is something to be said about the, what do you know about me?
Yes.
And I think that the lesson that this episode is trying to teach is how well do we really know the people who are in our lives on a regular basis?
Or the Feeny lesson is you can't fake pool.
Also very true. Okay, grade. What grade are you giving this?
You know what? If it were because of the Feeny aspect of this show, the A storyline, I'm going to give it a B+.
Okay. And I'm going to give it a... damn it, I'm torn. Because I actually really liked it, and I liked the secondary one. But when I really think of the quality of episodes that we've gotten,
I mean, we learn a lot. There's a moment. There's a real Boy Meets World Michael Jacobs moment between Shawn and Feeny.
I know I'm so borderline A minus B plus, and I can't decide. So because of that, I'm going to round up, and I'm gonna give it the benefit of the doubt and give it my A minus, which I haven't had in a while.
There you go.
I'm really, really happy with that. Okay, homework.
My homework is not something to watch, stream, ingest.
Oh wow, you're leaving me out here high and dry.
My homework for you guys is to go and do some Halloween decorating. This weekend, I went to a pumpkin patch. I got a shit ton of pumps. I went back to my crib. I put up a bunch of decorations and lights and all kinds of things. And there's something so fulfilling about just like being in a room full of your Halloween decorations and drinking some like cider and watching a horror movie. Like it's what the season's all about, guys. So I enjoyed it, and I think that everyone should just spend some time and appreciate our holidays. You know what? We are in the golden age of holidays when it comes to like the times of the year.
Yeah.
There's just nothing but hits for the rest of the year. And so like why not just like appreciate them a little more? So
okay. My homework is this show called Fleabag.
the one that just won the Emmys?
Yes.
I have not seen or heard anything about it.
I cannot speak more highly of this show
Okay, dope.
than what has already been said.
What's it about?
It's all right. So it's really hard, but the show is about a character named Fleabag, and of course that's not her real name, but the show doesn't really focus on any of the characters' real name. Like one of the characters is her stepmom, and it's just called stepmom or godmother, I think is what it is. And they don't really invest in names because that's not the point of this. The real point of the story is it's character development and their perspective, and I don't know how to describe it other than the main character is like a mix of Carrie from Sex and the City, Liz Lemon from 30 Rock, and
she's like a corporate boss?
No, she's just like she is a business owner.
What's the elevator pitch? Like what's the simple
God, I don't know how to explain. Like it's really hard to explain without giving anything away, but basically it's just a young woman who is exploring her life being not perfect.
Okay.
And there's a lot of really big truths that are revealed. Like just about like being human nowadays and like interacting and being lonely, or like what dating is like, but like in a really honest way that most people don't talk about.
Sure.
And I think that is really important. Like for example, I can say this. The opening scene is her being like, you know that feeling when you text a guy and he's on his way over and you told him that you had just gotten in but you were really in bed, so you had to go shower, get dressed, then have a glass of wine so there was a little bit of alcohol on your breath, but then also like be waiting for him as if you just got in. That's what I'm doing right now. And that is like the first line. It's just like, oh, you know those things that you do to like create this facade
Yes.
about yourself to other people? That's what I'm doing right now. And she does that whole Zach Morris thing where she speaks to the camera. And the whole bit is about her not being anyone who, like, you can understand why people find her annoying or like why she's not everyone's cup of tea, so to speak. But at the exact same time, she's so endearing and she's so human in her interactions. And yeah, that's dope. Yeah, I just honestly, it's really hard to describe without giving anything away because it's a British TV show. I will say that it is like 2.5 hours each season, so you can really marathon. There are only 2 seasons. That's all you're ever going to get. The writer and star of it has said that she told the story that she needed to tell, and the first season is very much about what it means to be dating now, and then the second season is about the different types of love that you have in your life, whether it be a sibling or with your parents or your friends. and just there, and what we seek and love nowadays. So yeah,
Cool.
All right, so thank you guys for listening to Bruh Meets World. Remember, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Play, iTunes, all of the places. Leave us a rating. You can follow us on Twitter and email us at Bruh Meets World. You can find me on Twitter at Extra Ceej. That's XTRACEEJ. TC.
And you can find me on Instagram at braver.me, @braver.me, motherfuckers.
I don't know why he did those things. I apologize. But I want you to remember to dream.
Should they also try?
And maybe do a little good.
Maybe do good. Later, bros.
Later, bros.